YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back, and the Jamal Adams trade rumors are starting to heat up again. And I think it's mainly because the Jets, Jamal Adams, they can't really come to an agreement on a long-term extension. Seems like the Jets do want to keep him, and they're going to need tremendous value to be able to move on for him. But the question is, does Jamal Adams want to be there? That is the question, and what is the price tag? The Jets, Gase, they're kind of focusing on offense more. That's the key to victory in today's NFL, and the offense definitely needs to be built up more. So the defense looking good, need pass rush, but if you take Jamal Adams out, kind of going backwards, obviously. So we're going to break down some trade scenarios with teams that I think make sense. Keep in mind that he has just over a $7 million cap hit this year, and then we'll need a pretty pricey contract extension for the future. So those teams need to have a pretty good amount of cap space in the future. So yeah, there's more teams that make sense, but it has to make sense, cap-wise as well as fit. Before we get started, please subscribe to both of our channels. Really appreciate the support, helping us get to 50K on this channel, trying to match that on the second channel. More content coming to that in the future, maybe non-sports or non-NFL content in the future as well. So all kinds of different things. Then check out that Twitter link in the description. We got a fan-voted playoffs going on. You guys voted for the seedings. Who makes the playoffs, 1 through 7 seeds, AFC, NFC. Now we're going to go round by round. Maybe some of the polls are already up by the time you're listening to this, and who wins. So we're going to be looking at who wins each round of the playoffs and who wins the Super Bowl, and then we're going to create a video out of that. So a fan-created video in the future based on those polls. So that'll be awesome. And then check out that podcast link for any of those things in the description, in the comments below. Start with the Cowboys. Why not? Because that's pretty much the one that's popping up. Cowboys linked to Jamal Adams. They've been on the hunt for a legit safety for quite some time. I guess there's not a whole bunch of proven ones. A lot of average to below average. And that's kind of what the Cowboys been dealing with. It's been very tough for them to go out and just find that guy, an above-average safety. They're still looking for that. So Jamal Adams, they saved a little cap space, losing some guys in free agency, kind of letting them walk and not spending huge money. Obviously, they spent on Cooper. They obviously had a very good draft. But they definitely could still use a safety like Jamal Adams. They really could get better in either safety spot. But what would the compensation be here? Rumors about Michael Gallup, which would be, the Jets would be intrigued by that. I just don't think, McCarthy comes in, drafts a receiver in the first round, CeeDee Lamb. McCarthy's out there valuing the receiver position. He did the early years in Green Bay, the successful years in Green Bay, and then he kind of lost a little control in the front office and what was selected for Green Bay, and they didn't really have the weapons then. So when he was successful, he had the receiver unit. Taking away Gallup really takes a hit from the unit. So I don't think they would be interested in trading Gallup. I actually think they'd be more interested in adding a second-round pick. Even though you may consider Gallup's value a little less than a second-round pick, I still think they would rather do this. I think this is more likely a first and a second-round pick. Last year, maybe the trade deadline, we heard that the Jets want multiple firsts. There's not going to be a team, even how good he is, how much of his upside is. There's really not too many teams, and I actually value the safety position more than I think most teams do. But the fact is, there isn't too many teams that are going to spend 2 first-round picks on a safety, on the safety position. So a first and a second, we've heard rumors about first and third. The Jets don't really want to get rid of them because the defense is heading in the right direction, and they want to focus on the offense. They won't be able to focus on the offense if they open up another hole on defense, and their best player on defense, they're actually their best player overall, who's still got upside. So a first and a second, maybe the Jets don't even do it then. That'll be tough for the Cowboys to give up 2 pretty high picks, especially what they did in this last draft. Even though the guys haven't played yet, they're very happy. Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy, very happy what they selected, and they think, it's almost a rebuild without being in a rebuild, in terms of the roster. You just brought McCarthy in. Now it starts a new stage of what talent you're going to bring in, and they're already a talented team. So maybe they don't want to jeopardize that, giving up the picks. But first and second may get the job done here. Next team in trade scenario, the Ravens. What about throwing Matthew Judon, the pass rusher, in there? Tough to figure out the exact compensation of this one, but I think a first-round pick and Matthew Judon goes to the Jets, so they get a pass rusher, which they're missing. That's pretty much the last piece they need there, but you're taking away Jamal Adams. But, I mean, you do have guys like Marcus May, and you just drafted Ashton Davis. You know, a move for Marcus May to strong safety perhaps is ideal there, because Ashton Davis is a single high free safety. But you get a pass rusher, so they may think that's a win, but you compare Jamal Adams' value to Matthew Judon, obviously a pretty big difference. Judon on the franchise tag as well, so they may have to, and that's pretty pricey. You know, I almost think it pays him a little more than, you know, maybe somebody would pay him long term, so they'll have to work out a deal as well. But the Ravens giving up two pretty valuable things there, first and Judon. So they do get a pick back, thinking fourth, fifth, probably a fifth there, because there was talks about them moving on from Judon anyways, and they have some young pass rushers to step up, and they kind of value pass rush from the actual D-line these days and the inside linebacker position with blitzes and Don Martindale's scheme. Why could they want Jamal Adams? Because, you know, you may say, well, they have Earl Thomas at free, Chuck Clark, who they kind of put faith in, you know, getting rid of Tony Jefferson and extending Clark, who's been pretty fantastic for them for where they got him, you know, more than impressive, I should say. But the Ravens, they run a lot of cover zero, which involves bringing the safeties up, and Earl Thomas might be better in the back end, and they would not be hesitant to play three safeties at once, you know, using guys like Adams, kind of a free roam safety almost, like do his thing up in the box, pretty much can do anything. But when he makes those huge game-changing plays, you kind of let him do his thing up in the box. And you could tend to blitz some of these guys too. Clark could be used in that way, and that way Earl Thomas, your free safety, can stay back. So this would be definitely appealing to this defense, to Don Martindale's defense, and I think it would make them a lot better. You know, the secondary arguably could be the best in football. If not, it's got to be top three. So you could say that I really don't need him, and that could be in a way accurate, but you definitely get better, and you just get more of that game-changing playmaking ability when you got guys like this, especially with the guys around him. You know, Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, and those safeties and those linebackers. You know, I think it'll work very well with their scheme, their coverage. I think it's a win-win. You just don't really know for sure what you're going to get with Judon. I think he's pretty consistent, but nothing super flashy. But do the Jets get better with this? Definitely not right away, losing Jamal Adams, but you do get better at the pass rush position, and you get a first-round pick to kind of focus on offense. You know, the problem is just putting full faith in Adam Gase to kind of turn this thing around, because it feels like he's kind of drafting at this point as well. So that's kind of the struggle there. But the Ravens do have the space in the future to kind of make this deal work for, guaranteeing Jamal Adams will get his big extension, pricey extension. Next team, the Broncos. The Broncos got a very good free safety in Justin Simmons, an up-and-comer, a top 10, maybe top 5 safety going forward. And he's a playmaker in the back end. So if you throw in a Jamal Adams in Vic Fangio's scheme to kind of come up in the box and play his game, stop the run a little better for them in the back end, they kind of need more help there. I think it's perfect. So maybe a similar thing to the Cowboys first round, second round, or what about a first, third, and then Deshaun Hamilton, which feels like the Broncos he's just kind of deep depth at this point because what they did the receiver unit. The Jets may because you still think he's got a little bit of upside, got to catch the ball, but a little bit of upside. He was fantastic, improving every year out of Penn State, so maybe that'll be appealing to the Jets there. So first, third, Deshaun Hamilton. Broncos get Jamal Adams. They do have Kareem Jackson as well. Another team that I wouldn't really rule out because the shortage in corners, using an extra safety there, but really you just get better. Just kind of the thought of Vic Fangio when he was at the Bears. Eddie Jackson, basically Justin Simmons, Jamal Adams, basically Adrian Amos here in this situation. So, and it would actually be better, I think. Jamal Adams with Justin Simmons would be absolutely ridiculous, and just more game-changing ability, playmaking ability there, because you're going to get that from your pass rush on the edge, and you got it in the deep end with Justin Simmons, but you're gonna want to add a little more of that, and as well as they did in the draft. I don't think they would be. You can argue both ways. I don't think they'll be too worried about giving up first-round pick when you get a guy like Jamal Adams, but you're trusting your draft process, and it's looking pretty good that you may not want to give up that capital there. So, but just the thought of Adams in that defense, because I think it would be a really good defense as it is, because the amount of playmakers there. But I think it makes it that much better. Adding Jamal Adams, the Broncos could have the best defense in football. So that's definitely an interesting one. They do have a lot of future cap as well. Really, all these teams do. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's a lot of teams he fits, but it has to work. About 7 to 8 million cap hit this year. That has to work, and then a juicy cap hit in the future because he needs a pretty big deal. Okay, maybe you can argue that he's not the #1 safety for this year. You definitely argue that he is, but he probably is going forward. Maybe him versus, we talked about Justin Simmons, we talked about Derwin James, guys like that for going forward. So yeah, pretty pricey. And it makes sense why. To me, I value a guy like Jamal Adams, I think, more than most teams do in the NFL. What he brings to the table. Next, we got the Colts. Similar deal, couple picks and a player. First, fourth, Kamoko Toure. The Colts may be hesitant to get rid of. There's a couple things that makes this one maybe one of the more long shot ones compared to the rest. Because, they do like Toure. We didn't get to see a whole bunch of him last year. He was, I'd say the year before, a young, obviously, Kamoko Toure was pretty inconsistent, but he had those flashy moments when he did play. I don't think they're going to be too hesitant to get rid of him. They did draft Ben Banogu out of TCU last year to kind of pair with Justin Houston, perhaps, or the plan was for the future was Banogu and Toure. I was thinking about Banogu here as well, but he's kind of just too new, too fresh to the team. They drafted him more recent for a reason. And the Jets definitely in the market for a pass rusher. The Colts really, they're really trying to improve that safety unit. The other obstacle here is the Colts. Do they trade a back-to-back first-round picks? Maybe it's hard to see that. And then, value him at a first-round pick and more, plus spending that big money. They kind of been hesitant to spend huge money on players like this. But they have been on the hunt for a big-time safety. They bring in Blackman. I believe that is to replace Hooker. I think Hooker is the better safety, free safety for sure, but has the injury concerns. They just bring in Blackman, who has upside because he's only played free safety for 1 year, and he was definitely better at free than he was at corner. So that could be the plan, but the strong safety is kind of the question mark. And they drafted some guys here and there, some young guys that can possibly play there. But I mean, you definitely get better here. You have the cap space. Just at the point where you just can't be afraid to get better here, which sometimes I worry about the Colts in that regard. Don't want to spend the big money too much. They kind of went all in for Buckner. That might be their only thing there on the defensive side, and they very much trust their defensive drafting. They're drafting in general. So I think that'll be a pretty good trade here. A lot given up from the Colts, but really the big value is just in the first round pick, and you get big value back here. Next team is the Jaguars. Now the question with this one is, will Jamal Adams play for the Jags? It seems like a rocky place right now. A lot of players don't want to play there. I really don't know what's going on, why that is. It feels like some of the players have some character. It's something with their character. They're not bad people, obviously, but that's just what it seems like. But is it something in Jacksonville causing that to happen? Is it maybe they're planning to play overseas so many times a year? I've talked about that in the past, that players don't really want to do that. I'm sure where they go, London, sure, it's a lovely place, but just traveling that much, it's already crazy hectic as it is to be a professional athlete, professional football player. So maybe that's what it is too. So that's kind of the question. Do you want to sign long-term at a team that's kind of struggling right now, and struggling in multiple ways, really, is kind of what I'm getting at. That's kind of the question. But two players that may not want to play for the teams, that's kind of why the Jets may have more leverage, though, because I don't get any sense that Jamal Adams will sit out. I think he'll play, even if he's not paid. We'll see. Ngakwe's not going to play. The Jags also have Josh Allen and Clavon Chason, and to be their future there on the edge rush positions. So, they're kind of okay with Ngakwe not playing. They just want to get the right value back. So, Jamal Adams, Yannick Ngakwe, and I think the Jets also get a third-round pick there because a little bit of leverage. Tough one to figure out there. It wouldn't surprise me if it honestly was straight up, just because, Jamal Adams, bigger name, better value, I guess, but at the same time, look what more the impact position is. What are teams valuing more? Pass rush. After quarterback, maybe the most important impact position. So there's all kind of leverage kind of back and forth here. Jamal Adams for Ngakoue, third-round pick, so the Jags definitely need safety help. and they get kind of more than safety help. But Jamal Adams, the Jets get their pass rush ability that they're missing. So this would be a win-win here, I think, for both teams. But yeah, the question is, the question is Jamal Adams, does he want to play for the Jags? Does Yannick Ngakoue want to play for the Jets? I guess those are the questions there. And then one last one here, an interesting one. The 49ers, who already have one of the best defenses in football, maybe the best last year. Could they add Jamal Adams? And looking at the future cap, they got plenty of space next year. And I kind of went with a similar deal as the Cowboys, first and second round pick, just with picks, no players. What is the value? To me, it's somewhere around there. Maybe the Jets wouldn't even do it. Sending them to the NFC, they might feel a little better rather than AFC, of course, for obvious reasons. But looking at this, the Niners, very good defense last year. Do they really have needs on the defense anymore? Really, not really. You could get better, though. The problem is Jaquiski Tartt, who is their strong safety, really stepped up last year, kind of created some turnovers, and he did his job very well. And he could be involved in this deal, but Jamal Adams, you just get a lot better. Just their cover three. They bring Jimmy Ward back, the free safety back there, which maybe isn't long term. Maybe it's Tavarius Moore, former Southern Miss player, but a couple years ago they drafted him on a Southern Miss, but he could be that free safety. And then Jamal Adams could be that strong, but Tartt's there now, kind of that buzz safety in the cover three. But they'll kind of give Adams more freedom. Or they can kind of use all three safeties. We see some teams doing that, kind of let Jamal Adams kind of be the free roam, and then everyone else stick to their duties and just go with two corners there because, opposite of Richard Sherman, there was some struggles. I thought Mosley honestly looked good when he got the opportunity, but it was kind of in and out there. And then Williams was a good nickel corner. Could they possibly move him outside to add another safety in there instead of the nickel corner? I think it's all possibilities. I think they would give different looks. Maybe Tartt's not in the game at all times. Or maybe they want to use Adams and Tartt. I think unlikely. I think very similar style safeties, but wouldn't close any idea on the Niners there. I think that would just make them, maybe a clear-cut dominant. And they're probably going to be, again, a pretty dominant defense, but I think, and the secondary, the secondary kind of let them down at the, the stretch of the Super Bowl game. I thought, the pass rush I think makes them look better at times. Don't get me wrong, they're very solid, very well coached, veteran, smart players, and they can be a little better tackling. And a little better in coverage because you can't expect the pass rush to be in on the superstar against the superstar offensive lines and quarterbacks, like the Super Bowl every single play. You can't really expect that. So having a player like this really takes you to the next step. What if they had Jamal Adams last year? It's weird to say, but what if they had Jamal Adams in the Super Bowl? That really could have been the difference. It really could have been. So pretty wild there. But yeah, those are the teams that made sense to me in terms of fit. Could be interested because of how he fits or somewhat of a need. Even if it's not a giant need, you could be getting better. I think that's what separates the smart teams, the teams that have continued to have successes. They're never afraid to get better here. They're always out doing their homework, trying to get these players. They're never gonna only rely on a guy just because that's the guy they drafted. That's kind of separates the men from the boys, in my opinion. Just one of the many reasons, I think, but. Yeah, this will be interesting. And again, a lot of these teams had to work now for cap, but mainly in the future, most importantly in the future cap. So if you didn't see your team, that could be a reason. There's other teams that maybe it could have worked, but I just don't see them doing it. Mainly we can talk about that. If you want to tweet at me on Twitter, the link in the description for the Twitter. Or if you want to comment, I'll see it faster and almost respond instantly if it's on Twitter. But yeah, follow that Twitter. We'd really appreciate it. Subscribe to both of our channels. And appreciate everyone's support. We're going to keep on grinding, kind of reach that next goal. Maybe let's get us to, we're at 50K now. Maybe next year, hopefully we're getting closer to 100K. That's asking a lot, but hey, we stepped up big time this year thanks to you guys. So anything's possible there. But appreciate you guys for watching. That's going to do it. Goodbye.